2 knot tying without tension in a two-handed fashion. We will start by using a 2/0 silk ligature. The trainee should have each end of the ligature in each hand when the timer starts. Once the timer starts, first move is to cross the sutures as seen here, and then to throw a knot. And then we'll throw a second knot in the opposite direction. We will cross our hands such that the knot lays down square, and then we will throw the third throw in the opposite direction and then cinch it down each time with the fingers shown here. At that point the clock is stopped. We will cut our tails to 1 centimeter. We will inspect it and score this knot as shown here. It should lie within the colored segment, otherwise there will be an error penalty assessed. There should be no air knot, no gap between the ligature and the rubber band, and this does not have an air knot. And then we spread with our scissors and see minimal slippage, several millimeters at most, but then the ligature breaks and the knot is seen intact here. We also assess errors for any breakage of the suture material itself. So again, this drill starts with one end of the ligature in each hand. The timer is started. The suture strands are crossed. I usually hold the suture in my left hand as shown here, making almost a figure of 4, throwing the first knot backwards, so to speak, cinching it down within the colored segment, making adjustments accordingly. The second throw will be forward, which will be in the opposite direction from my first throw. I will reverse my hands and bring it down squarely, completely 180 degrees from the orientation of the first throw. And then my third throw will be in the opposite direction, the backwards throw again, again cinching it down snugly. And then the timer will stop and we will again score the knot and assess for accuracy or any sort of penalties. It's fully within the colored segments. There is no air knot or gap, and when we break it, it breaks appropriately. And there was no breakage of the suture strands. There are certain pitfalls to knot tying that must be avoided in order to score the proficiency levels. We will demonstrate for the two-handed ties some pitfalls to avoid. If you don't cross your strands initially and throw the first knot, you'll have to reverse your two hands to throw that knot in a square fashion as seen here, which is acceptable, but I find it a bit more awkward. Okay, if on the second throw we don't square those knots but simply just throw it down as shown here, it will not hold up to our burst test, our slippage test. If you also don't hold a bit of tension as shown here, there's going to be a gap. Although it's small, there is a gap between the tubing and the ligature, as I can easily slide my scissors into that gap. Again, I will throw a non-square knot in any fashion as is commonly seen in the clinical setting, although it should not be endorsed in critical suturing situations. And what we'll see is that we do have a gap, and that when I go to test this knot, it slides relatively freely. As can be seen here, we have quite a loose ligature now. It did not break along the suture strand, and those techniques should be avoided.